war, an ability that absorbs both physical and arcane attacks, transmuting them into a cataclysmic shockwave. The resultant explosion is potent enough to annihilate a nearby wall, but the Archduke, unperturbed, declares that the technique is still insufficient. Turning to Mord and Master Todd, the Archduke addresses the pandemonium Mord has unleashed. Back at the training grounds, despite Mord's extraordinary prowess, he feels apprehensive in the face of the Archduke's formidable presence. The Archduke delicately raises Mord's chin and inquires about his mother. Mord responds that her name was Lena, which the Archduke recollects, upon discovering that Mord has already undergone divine awakening and vanquished Fiona utilizing solely body armor. Even when Fiona resorted to impulse, the Archduke resolved to assess Mord's capabilities. Instead of confronting the Archduke directly, Mord is pitted against Kestner, one of the foremost warriors, for a sparring bout. Kestner proffers Mord a weapon of his choosing, but Mord courteously declines. The battle commences, and Mord swiftly adds to his burgeoning repertoire of accomplishments by evading a rapid jab from Kestner. Without the assistance of mana, Kestner, visibly impressed, retaliates with even swifter blows. Mord discerns that he is confronting a genuinely formidable adversary. For the first time, acknowledging Mord's latent prowess, Kestner unleashes his unbridled power, compelling Mord to reciprocate. When the two collide at maximum capacity, the impact generates shockwaves throughout the atmosphere, even captivating the Archduke. Kestner is astonished by the sheer magnitude of mana emanating from Mord. A mere novice in the meantime, Mord relishes his newfound prowess, recognizing that he can now fully exploit his latent capabilities. Unlike the cautious combatant he once was, he adopts a fighting stance, and the second round commences. The arena erupts in a dazzling spectacle of light and bursts as Kestner lunges towards Mord, unleashing a powerful strike. Mord initially parries the assault, but Kestner expertly employs a delayed impact technique, channeling force from the point of impact, driving Mord back onto his knees. Mord collects himself, but Kestner swiftly closes the gap, leaving no room for recovery. In a fleeting moment, Mord grasps the immense disparity in their skills as he absorbs another crushing blow, sending him hurtling towards the wall. Exuding an air of supremacy, Kestner delivers a sardonic quip, deeming the match a potential letdown. For the first time since his rebirth, Mord felt a wave of nausea. Crimson trickled from his lips. His ragged, uncontrolled breaths only amplified his regret at sparring with Kestner, a feeling more potent than his initial shame at starting in the beginner class. Yet, Mord continued to restrain himself, anticipating a reciprocal display of restraint from Kestner, who, in essence, was goading him into unleashing his full power with each relentless charge. As the duel raged on, Mord employed cunning maneuvers, luring Kestner into a calculated body blow. Mord neutralized the assault by deftly redirecting Kestner's force against him, delivering a swift counter-strike. Kestner was visibly stunned by the speed with which Mord had assimilated the technique, having witnessed it only once. Invigorated by this unexpected turn of events, Kestner unleashed his impulse, a technique derived from divine bloodline, and implored Mord to reciprocate with his full might. Before the confrontation could escalate further, Archduke Bernez intervened, appearing content with the spectacle he had observed. However, catching both Mord and the audience completely unaware, the Archduke abruptly unleashes an impulse sphere at Mord from point-blank range as a further assessment. Despite his initial alarm, Mord skillfully averts disaster by drawing upon his prior experience combating an impulse wielder. Mirroring Fine's technique, he repels the assault by utilizing impulse himself, recognizing that a novice's bodily defenses were inadequate against such a potent onslaught. The sight of Mord abruptly engulfed in a cerulean aura provokes disparate reactions. The Archduke appears profoundly astonished, while Master Todd grapples with understanding how a recently awakened individual could already attain impulse. Mord, conversely, is simply awestruck by his own aptitude, while concurrently scheming to utterly pulverize his despicable father's face. Before this anticipated confrontation unfolds, Archduke Bernez extends an offer of recompense to Mord, bestowing upon him any desire of his heart. Fully embracing his protagonist aura, Mord requests leave to attempt a dungeon conquest, renowned as the sepulchre of the god of strife. This imperative arises from Mord's need to secure the world fragments before Aiden, in order to deliver the world from impending doom. While dungeons across myriad fantasy realms often adhere to familiar archetypes, complete with perilous traps and unpredictable rogue creatures, the dungeons within this narrative possess a unique distinction, owing to the enigmatic world erosion phenomenon. This extraordinary phenomenon results in the genesis of dungeons at the nexus of colliding worlds, giving rise to a multitude of anomalous events. The demonic realm dispatches its malevolent denizens to this world, but recognizing Mord's crucial need to ascend in power. Prior to his unavoidable confrontation with destiny, he selects the formidable grave of the god of strife. This dungeon, forged by the divine hand of god Bernas himself, serves as the genesis of Mord's true quest, to gather the scattered fragments of the world. Archduke Bernas becomes visibly incensed upon hearing this preposterous demand from a novice, but composing himself, he inquires about Mord's intentions. Mord responds cunningly, asserting that he desires to see the origin of his lineage. Explaining the intricacies of ISC to these NPCs would be futile. After all, Kestner, however, is insulted by the notion of a bastard seeking entry to the hallowed grounds, where legitimate descendants partake in their coming-of-age rituals. He erroneously presumes that Mord is coveted, the prestige associated with such an accomplishment. Mord swiftly reminds him of the insignificance of his judgment, as Archduke Bernas grants Mord access, observing that this pattern of outsiders venturing into the dungeon is not unprecedented. Kestner's lack of awareness is exposed, and the Archduke adds insult to injury by caustically inquiring if Kestner, himself of illegitimate birth, would like to try the dungeon himself. Kestner is left humiliated, but the Archduke also postpones Mord's request, serving as a stark reminder of his novice status. He's told he must first ascend to the rank of warrior before attempting the hallowed dungeon, knowing he needs to surpass Aiden's progress, and quickly. The protagonist, seemingly blessed with unwavering fortune, Mord confidently accepts the dual invitations, brimming with self-assurance. He's determined to etch his name into legend. Mord and Master Todd depart the training grounds, but the encounter lingers in Kestner's thoughts. His curiosity about this intriguing newcomer remains piqued. Archduke Bernas then approaches Kestner, seeking his assessment of Mord's capabilities. Following their sparring match, Kestner asserts that Mord held back, concealing his true strength. The Archduke counters this claim, astutely observing that Mord unleashed his full power to halt the impulse ball, a display that undeniably represented his genuine 100% effort. That, he declares, was Mord's unbridled potential on full display. Acclaim for Mord's extraordinary mana continues to flow from both men, accompanied by inevitable comparisons, even captivated by a figure from legend known as Erna. What truly occupies Archduke Bernos's thoughts, however, is the epiphany that Mord isn't enslaved by the yearning for acceptance as a true Bernos heir. This striking parallel to his mother, Lena, is undeniable. Meanwhile, back at the training grounds, Mord learns that 5 aspirants have been chosen to brave the dungeon, known as the Grave of the God of Struggle, although only 3 positions remain open, as Kestner and Viscount Owen have already secured theirs through letters of endorsement. However, this quintet has a limited objective: to chart the dungeon's current configuration, as it metamorphoses after each successful completion. This spares the esteemed Bernos offspring from undue exertion. With unwavering determination, Mord resolves to swiftly ascend from trainee status. However, he now faces a formidable obstacle in Daisley, the imperious master of the advanced class. Daisley, harboring a pre-existing bias, has already schemed to impede Mord's advancement. He condescendingly tasks Mord with learning from fellow trainees, a blatant maneuver to undermine his training. Mord voices his apprehensions, but the irascible elder feigns ignorance, deceptively portraying this as retribution for Phaon's injury. Mord, however, swiftly refutes this fabrication, asserting that he has already endured his due penalty. Daisley's fury escalates with each instance of Mord's defiance, culminating in a physical assault against Mord. Following this, Daisley decrees an outrageous demand. Mord must maintain a constant pace while circling the grounds relentlessly throughout the entire day, concurrently memorizing instructions for an impending quiz. Even Mord's patience has its boundaries, particularly when confronted with such a flagrant misuse of authority. His indignation triggers a momentary surge of mana, but Daisley retaliates with a forceful blow, propelling him backward a few centimeters. Although Mord contemplates reprimanding the elder, he ultimately refrains, choosing not to imperil his aspiration of reaching the tomb of the god of combat. He resentfully submits to his penalty. However, the ordeal doesn't conclude that day. Daisley resolves to exert his dominance over Mord at every juncture, fueled by an arrogance that dwarfs even Mord's own. By the age of 15, relentless castigation and scathing insults become Daisley's pedagogical tools, coercing obedience from everyone. Mord, precariously balanced in a handstand, regrets his impulsive display of mana. That singular exhibition of power shattered Daisley's inflated ego before the other disciples. Consequently, Mord now endures even more unwarranted torment from the infuriated elder, recognizing that this no longer pertains to instruction. Mord resolves to finally engage in a physical confrontation. Later that day, Daisley contemplates in his chambers, bewildered by Mord's audacity to endure such preposterous penalties, simply to defy him. Daisley fails to grasp Mord's unwavering resolve, a tenacity forged even as an illegitimate offspring. Determined to subdue Mord, Daisley vows to put him in his place, oblivious that he is merely a stepping stone in Mord's ascent to greatness. The following day arrives, and Mord submits his request to undertake the warrior's trial, leaving everyone, Daisley included, utterly astonished by his overflowing confidence. Mord denounces Daisley as an inept and unqualified instructor, effectively silencing his incessant drivel. The accusations unseat Daisley from his arrogance, as he attempts to reassert his authority over Mord's eligibility for the warrior's trial. But he is rendered speechless when Mord directly challenges the antiquated fool for the very essence of the god of struggle, which is a sacred combat ritual, a surprising tradition for a savage lineage to uphold. But they adhere to the doctrine of might makes right, believing the deity of conflict bestows favor upon true combatants. This guiding principle dictates that the victor is inherently justified. Initially resistant to this notion, Daisley attempts to ascertain how Mord possesses this knowledge. However, our protagonist refuses to divulge this information, asserting his familiarity with the established protocols and exercising his prerogative to challenge Daisley. He invokes his credentials as a master, drawing upon a widely held conviction that the deity of conflict himself endured similar maltreatment as Mord at the hands of his own instructors. They exploited his ignorance of his true identity, and thus he imparted a lesson to his disciples. Those who exploit their authority without demonstrating their own merit are deserving of demise. For this reason, apprentices may challenge their masters. Mord dissents from this custom, as it appears to have been devised by a disgruntled subordinate, but he will undoubtedly exploit it to his benefit. Daisley attempts to thwart Mord's request by seizing his collar, but is cowed by Mord's formidable aura. Mord reminds the elder of the inviolable policy. He establishes some distance between them, composes himself, and amasses his mana. Meanwhile, an announcer proclaims and formalizes the soul of the god of struggle. Before they commence, Mord verifies one last time if the old man is prepared for the ordeal. This further aggravates Daisley's already inflated ego. Refusing the challenge would result in public humiliation, as Daisley's lackeys present are useless as credible witnesses. Shamelessly drawing out the confrontation, Daisley reiterates his pronouncements, asserting his hollow authority. So Mord vocalizes the reader's unspoken thoughts, that no more time can be squandered on inconsequential refuse like him. Struggling to contend with Mord's extraordinary aura in a haze of overconfidence, believes his seasoned experience will effortlessly crush the rookie, but finds himself utterly humiliated yet again when Mord abruptly silences his foolish boasting. Mord declares the battle will commence in 1 hour, departing with a final stinging jab, leaving Daisley in a fit of uncontainable rage. Meanwhile, news of the god of struggle's soul reaches Kessner, who finds the development intriguing. He observes with satisfaction that the insignificant NPCs have finally cleared the area, signaling the arrival of the true protagonist. Intrigued, he decides to witness the spectacle firsthand, and sets off toward the advanced training grounds. Finally, the hour of Daisley's reckoning arrives. Mord, facing him, wages a masterful psychological campaign against the arrogant veteran by feigning indifference. The audience revels in the unfolding drama. After 5 long years, anticipation feverishly mounts. As Mord and Daisley exchange pre-battle taunts, Kestner's entrance electrifies the already eager crowd. Daisley's anxiety escalates as he grasps that Mord recognizes someone of Kestner's stature. Kestner inquires about Mord's motivation for this challenge, and Mord blatantly exposes Daisley's inadequacy as a mentor. He then confidently asserts his ability to vanquish an elderly opponent. Daisley believed he was cunning, assigning one of his subordinates as judge, but Kestner seizes the chance to preside instead, capitalizing on the junior official's negligence with the time. This leaves both combatants with identical expressions of astonishment on their faces, unaware of Mord's true standing. The spectators are bewildered to see even Kestner intrigued by the duel, but their curiosity is swiftly satisfied when Kestner puts Daisley in his proper place. When addressed as a mere student, Kestner reminds Daisley of his current status as a viscount, emphasizing the vast disparity in their ranks, even if they were once acquainted. Outwardly, Daisley yields and apologizes for his oversight, but inwardly, he seethes with suppressed fury due to the indignity he's forced to endure. Unfortunately, this is abruptly curtailed when Mord reminds Kestner that the duel is imminent. Kestner departs, anticipating a vigorous confrontation, while Mord and Daisley prepare to engage in combat. Both are spurred toward the impending clash for distinct motivations. The conflict remains confined to mere words when Daisley infuses his sword with an impulsive surge of energy, proclaiming it superior to Fine's physical impulse. Mord counters this using solely his own body's inherent defenses. He's clearly oblivious to the custom of the Burnish bloodline, relinquishing their weapons upon reaching their zenith. This displays him as feeble, particularly given Mord's casual nightwear. The glimmer of Daisley's crimson sword impulse pales in comparison to Mord's radiant azure impulse, a clear indication of him unleashing his full capabilities, something unprecedented for him, especially not against a novice like Fine. Witnessing Mord's physical prowess, instinctively, Daisley reacts as if contemplating a reconsideration of the duel, but lacks the time to properly deliberate. Mord launches a swift lunge, aiming to deliver a blindingly fast blow. Daisley parries with his blade, their impulsive actions resulting in a resounding clash. To his astonishment, he's propelled backward by the force of the doubled fist. Mord has gleaned knowledge from his encounter with Kestner, but finds no respite for contemplation as Mord presses his relentless assault. The old man's incessant chatter persists, his jaw seemingly tireless, as he prattles on about the inadequacy of a single strike to incapacitate him. He then bashes Mord with his shield, throwing him off balance. Capitalizing on the opportunity, he advances to conclude the fight with his sword. Daisley, still endeavoring to educate Mord on the true nature of combat, inflicts a deep gash across his face. Mord narrowly evades a potentially fatal blow. Daisley's incessant babbling and craving for affirmation persists as he unleashes a barrage of ferocious slashes and thrusts upon Mord. Yet, our protagonist effortlessly sidesteps each attack with remarkable fluidity. After a brief respite, Mord pauses, recognizing the stark disparity in their experience, a discrepancy that could very well jeopardize his position in the advanced training grounds. Should he lose this exchange, Daisley's confidence will surge. Yet, he still fails to gain the advantage in this battle of wits. Mord lands a blow to Daisley's ego, pointedly referring to his age. However, Mord has grown weary of this game and finally unleashes his divine blood release, his hair transforming to white, as if he has liberated his true potential. Like Luffy in Gear 5, his eyes blazing silver like Goku in his Ultra Instinct form. Witnessing Mord's transformation, an amalgamation of two legendary protagonists, Daisley's prospects of victory evaporate the very instant they hear the harbinger of death, its presence intensifying with each step as Mord succumbs to the overwhelming power. He proclaims his absolution from responsibility for his ensuing actions. As established lore dictates, those of the Byrna's bloodline experience a divine blood awakening upon reaching the age of 15. However, only a select few have ever successfully mastered this formidable power, hence the inherent reward associated with its control, an unfathomable power that dwarfs even the wildest